And good morning, everyone, from Bolero Mount Prospect in Mount Prospect, Illinois. This is the 9 a.m. squad for this weekend's competition in the PBA League Bowler Certification National Championships. I'm $2 Phil Brylow, bringing you through the whole weekend of competition. This will be the only live main feed this weekend. We'll have Kris Prather in the booth about 10 o'clock local time, so about an hour from now. We'll have Kris in the booth. That'll be the only live feed we have this weekend for a booth feed, a main feed with a PBA Pro. You'll be able to watch Kris Prather bowl at 2 p.m. this afternoon. We'll get you some information on what pair he's starting on, and then you'll be able to follow him all the way through the afternoon if you want to see how he does in the exempt division. If you want to see how any of your friends and family do in any of the 8 divisions of competition, well, here in the main feed during this 10 a.m. squad, we'll bounce around a little bit. We'll follow some hot hands as they continue to bowl. And we'll have some questions and answers with Kris Prather when he comes in the booth in about an hour. If you have any questions about this LBC National Tournament or any questions later on for Kris Prather, drop them in the chat this morning. And we'll be able to get you those answers. We'll start you right now. On lanes 9 and 10. We have Robert Dolotowski. He's your top bowler on lane 9. He's bowling in the Open Classic division. Ben Snyder bowling in the Senior Classic division. Andre Eubanks on lane 10 bowling in the Open Classic division. And Jerry Matthew bowling in the Senior Classic division. So all scratch players bowling right now. Here on lanes 9 and 10. 8 streams for you to choose from, so once you find your favorite player on those streams, they'll make movements every game. So this morning with 9 pairs in play, these players on 9 and 10 will simply move right next door to 11 and 12. Game 2, then they'll move to 21 and 22 for game 3, 23 and 24 for game 4, 31 and 32 for game 5, and all the way taking a big walk down to 3 and 4 for game number 6. And the nice part is, especially for these players, as they go through the day, if they hit a pair during this block that they're just not happy with, maybe do bad on, or hit a pair they want to see how they bowled every shot for a really good game, they can go back and rewatch this on YouTube. PBA providing this coverage for free all through this 2024 League Bowler Certification National Championships. So I know some of you may be watching that haven't bowled the LBCs yet and are looking to bowl the LBCs. If you've signed up, great, it's appreciated. If you haven't signed up yet, there's still time to do so. can do that. Right there. PBA.com/LBC tournament for your 2024 PBA National Championship tournament information. Still openings for the next 5 weekends. Only squad I know of that's fully sold out is Saturday, June 29th at 2 p.m. Lots of big PBA 50 names will be on that squad. I know there was a question in the chat a little while ago about someone looking for Chris Barnes. He's out in Vegas at the USBC Senior Masters. That's on a different network, as we like to say. That's being covered by Bull TV. So once again, more information, get it at pba.com/LBC tournament. They've got frequently asked questions they can answer for you. You can sign up for a tournament squad. And lots of money available in this event. $25,000 on top in the Open Classic division, $5,000 on top on the Women's Classic, and Senior Classic divisions. So it looks like we have a couple players, Snyder and Matthew, that are not here. Not sure if they've rescheduled their squad or not. Kind of unusual. You sign up for a tournament, pay a significant entry fee, and then not make it to the event. So let's see if this helps. Somebody said in the chat that microphone's a little low this morning. Let's see if that helps. Apologies if it's been a little tough to get everything through here. It looks like our audio is a little bit better now. So there we go. Now we're set. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Once again, if you have questions, throw them in the live chat. Thanks, Larissa, for watching. Thanks, Zulu the Dragon. Collins, thanks for watching as well. Appreciate everybody tuning in. You know, the nice part about this, too, as mentioned in the chat, is every pair in coverage. You see, if you go in the description below the video you're watching on YouTube, you open it up, you'll see all the pair-by-pair feeds, so you can follow your favorite player as they make their way through this. 6 games of competition. Let's take a peek over here on lanes 11 and 12 momentarily. Oh, bad break there for Eubanks. 11 and 12. You've got Mark Everly. Mark bowling in the Senior Classic division. Got Ryan Chapin bowling in the Men's Handicap division. He's coming in with a 154 average. Jim Novak coming in the Open Classic division. And William Harris coming into the Senior Classic division. So, that's the one nice thing, too. Sometimes we saw a lot of it in opening weekend. Teams signing up to bowl together. 4 players bowling together. Obviously, they're bowling in the singles event right now, but there are the optional double events and optional team events, 4-player team. You don't have to all be on one squad, but we saw that last weekend with a couple teams. They all came in matching shirts, pretty sharp, bowled on the same pair. They're of different abilities. In the doubles and team competitions, they add in the bowler's handicap with whoever they're bowling with for doubles or for team. Your first 3 games make up your doubles event total. Your second 3 games, games 4, 5, and 6, make up your 4-player team event total. And with only having a $25 per player entry fee on those events, it really makes it easy to enter. And you can even enter with a PBA Pro. There might be some players that come in when Kris Prather bowls today, 2 p.m. Central Time, your start time for that. There might be some players that might want to bowl with Kris Prather. Maybe Kris will want to bowl with them. All they have to do is pay the entry fee before the first player on a doubles event or team event bowls, and you're entered. So if you want to bowl with EJ Tackett, EJ's bowling later on this month, and you want to bowl doubles, you just would pay the entry fee before yourself and EJ bowl. And even if you're not here on site, you can pay using the League Pals app to get those entries in way ahead of time as well. So that's one benefit to the tournament automation, is that you can get all your events entered before you even show up, and just worry about if you like brackets, if you're a bracket fan. They do have brackets available on every squad to bowl against the others on your squad, scratch and handicap brackets. Yeah, some people can be brackets fans. I do enjoy an occasional bracket here and there. We're back in the days when I bowled. Nothing wrong with getting in a bracket. Pattern out here is the 43-foot LBC National Championships pattern. If you actually go to that pba.com/LBC tournament information page, they actually have the graph of that pattern available for you, and they have all the numbers too. So if you want to practice in your local bowling center prior to arriving here to Bolero Mount Prospect, give you a general idea of how the pattern will play. You can see what equipment works pretty well on it. Obviously, the surface here at Bolero Mount Prospect may differ from your bowling center. Angela, good to see that you're going to be here next week. Feel free to stop by the booth, say hi when you bowl. Always happy to meet the people that watch the live stream productions. Yeah, this isn't a sport pattern. This is a kind of a cross between a sport pattern and a recreational or a house pattern. Just on the basis of it's about a 4.5 to 1 ratio on the pattern. There's a good chunk of oil in the pattern. There's almost 30 milliliters of oil in the pattern. And with the 4 to 1 ratio, it really allows a lot of different varieties to get to the pocket. We saw some players last week having some success early on with urethane up the outside and then migrating towards the middle of the pattern, making that big urethane to resin jump. There you see a player, it looks like trying to use urethane right there for Nowak. And maybe it's not urethane. Maybe it's just a kind of house-shined reactive ball. Can't get a good look from where I'm at here in the broadcast booth. For the women's, there's two women's division. There's an open women's classic division, which is a scratch division, and then there is a women's handicap division as well. So 2 different divisions for the women. So that way, I mean, this tournament open to all abilities and ages. We do have, for the players that are youth, we do have a boys handicap and girls handicap division if they want to bowl in a division and learn. We had a young player last week that had an average hovering around 120 that tried the boys handicap division. So that is one thing. Come in, get the experience of what it's like at a PBA national event. See what the pros do. They move pairs after every game. They have to record the serial numbers of their bowling balls on their score sheets. You could have your equipment checked. Our head of equipment and specifications, Neil Stremmel, here this weekend. We might be using your balls research. And it also helps keep all the competition on the ultimate fairness level. So we're almost done with our first game of competition here of the 6-game qualifying round. William Harris on a good run right now, working on a 4-bagger to offset that open in the 3rd frame. And the high hard one does not get the 4-pin to fall for Harris. So we're starting to have some player movement. And we're going to come back with answering some questions. Drop them in the chat. And we should have Kris Prather with us right towards the beginning of game number 3 as the 2024 PBA LBC National Championships rolls on from Bolero Mount Prospect. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this morning on our main feed here on our 9 a.m. local time squad. All right, new players coming on. We saw Eubanks and crew in game 1. Frozen grapes. There's 8 options you can choose from. Down in the description of the video, we have all the pair feeds, every game, every squad of the event. We have a main feed this morning. We do have Kris Prather joining us in about a half hour, tops, in the booth. So players will... people watching will be able to ask Kris questions in the chat, and we'll get a lot of them answered. Kris will be bowling at 2 p.m. today, local time, 3 p.m. Eastern for those feeds later on. So if you want to see how Kris Prather attacks the lanes and follow him game to game to game through all 6 pair of feeds, you'll be able to do so. All the way through his block. You know, and the one nice part, Angela, you mentioned about practice for those players coming in next weekend. Every Friday night here at Bolero Mount Prospect, there is a practice session on this pattern that's available. When you get your email confirming your squad time for the weekend from the PBA LBC, it should have that information about the practice session on there for you. You do need to sign up in advance, but if you're getting to the Mount Prospect area on the Friday night before you bowl, either Saturday or Sunday, you have the chance to take in that practice session and experience the exact lane pattern you'll be bowling on the next day. So that's, one thing that's really nice about this LBC National Championships. It's full transparency. There's other national championships out there that you might see a couple of shots if someone shoots 300 at 800. You don't know what the lane pattern is before you travel. So you can make the wrong guess on equipment that you need to bring with you. Not an issue with this PBA LBC National Championships. Full transparency of the pattern, full transparency of the pairs that are in play. You can watch players that might have similar styles to you as they go across the house and see what equipment they're using, see how they're playing the lanes. And that could help you as you take to the lanes here at Brunswick Mount Prospect over our last 5 weekends. And once again, you could have a special treat as well. Many weekends have a PBA professional bowling on at least one of the squads, if not more. Mentioned Kris Prather today on the 2 p.m. squad. Next Saturday on the 9 a.m. squad, bright and early, will be A.J. Chapman. Then Sunday, June 23rd at 11 a.m., Justin Knowles, Kevin McCune, and Zach Tackett will all be on that squad. Can you imagine getting paired up with PBA Players Championship winner from 2023, Kevin McCune, having him on your pair? Justin Knowles, great run at the World Series of Bowling for Justin. Zach Tackett, another solid PBA Tour season, along with being part of that Motown muscle with his brother EJ. EJ you'll see July 6th at 9 a.m. along with AJ Johnson and Francois Lavoie. Eubanks trying to get that double, and he does. As you can see, watching these players, it is a very playable pattern from many different angles, many different approaches. It's just a matter of repetition as to getting through the 1-3 pocket properly for right-handers. And joining me in the booth, Matt's had a pretty good 2024. He's got a doubles title with Andrew Anderson under his belt for the Roth-Holman doubles.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not too bad. We got Kris Prather in the booth with us. And Kris, not too far of a drive for you today to get to Bolero Mount Prospect.
A total of 45 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, got to actually sleep in a little bit this morning. Didn't have to wake up super early. Got up about 8:15 and got ready, headed on over. And now we get to hang out, watch some bowling, and bowl myself at 2 o'clock.
Yep. Yeah, so if you have questions for Kris, drop them in the chat. We'll get to as many as we can as this goes along, thanks to the, wow, a bunch of you there. We're looking forward to already seeing.
Oh, yeah, we got 400
Kris,
people
yeah.
almost in here. Absolutely.
So, watching some of these players in our Open Classic and Senior Classic divisions. Now, when Kris takes to the lanes today, he's in his own division. He's in the PBA exempt division, so it's not like these players here are going to be going against a score that Kris posts.
Yeah, honestly, most of these guys are probably going to shoot higher scores than the pros will. They did last year anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting because as we talked about, I talked a little bit about the pattern earlier being a 4.5 to 1 ratio. That's really, really soft for what you see compared to what week in, week out on the PBA Tour. And it already plays cliff. Norm called it cliffed when we had Norm Duke in the booth last week. So you guys are already starting with a cliffed pattern, and then it's going to get even more cliffed as you go along and repeat it. So here, I'll start with the first question. What's in the bag? I mean, you've seen something similar to this pattern in the past from last year's competition, and do you kind of I'm sure there's some new pieces of equipment in there. Obviously, Storm brands. There's all kinds of new balls that have come out. What's in the bag that you're going with, and what kind of surface preparation do you have on them?
I brought 6 balls, and having the luxury of having bowled here this season, I kind of already know what bowling balls look good. So I brought the new Rotogrip XL and the new Ion Pro. Mainly just because they're new. I haven't actually thrown them yet. If I'm being totally honest, I've bowled one time since the TOC.
Okay.
And it was last week in Michigan for a Memorial Day tournament. And so it's going to be, an exciting day. I did come in, thinking about this tournament a little bit because the pattern is a little bit softer than what we're typically bowling on. I don't necessarily want to hit what I'm looking at every single time because they are a little bit clipped. So I'm not exactly sharp, but I've been watching a lot more bowling than I have been in the past. So my eyes should be doing okay. And I think it'll just depend on what everybody's doing, around me on the pairs, because if somebody's throwing urethane, I'm going to have to throw a little slower because they're going to get a little tighter down lane. And if I'm following a bunch of reactive, then I should be able to play them pretty normal. And I think it's a little tougher than your typical house pattern, but it's not going to be so difficult that you're out here banging your head against the wall.
Yeah, we did have several players last week break the 1,400 plateau, so it's a 233 average if you shoot 1,400.
Yep.
So we did have 4 players in the Open Classic division get past that. A couple of notable players, kind of funny, a couple of Peterson winners, Ryan Kohlmeyer and Matt Staniger were both over 1,400. And they thought, compared to the tournament at Bolero Wauwatosa last year, that there's a little more difference pair to pair across the house here, and it really keeps you on your toes. And for those people that maybe thought about getting intimidated, all the scores were really high last year at Bolero Wauwatosa. These players thought that the scores would be a bit lower, and Ryan Kohlmeyer actually said, "I'm going to get a bigger." I shot the same thing last year, 1430, and I'm going to get a much bigger check, I think, than I got last year.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah,
and it's funny because when we bowled the PBA event here, the scores were relatively high. I mean, depending on the event, they were kind of high all year. But when we bowled here last, the pair-to-pair was actually pretty good, which led to scores being higher in the tournament then. I do think that pair-to-pair is totally dependent upon who you're following, so that might have been kind of what he was seeing as far as the pair-to-pair difference. But I think if you're following, people throwing reactive the entire time, I think it'll be fine. And if they're throwing the urethane ball, then you just got to be aware of it, just because it's going to drag some of that oil down the lane and make them just slightly tighter. But I haven't really seen any urethane balls going down the lane here today, maybe one. But I also think that they're soft enough to where you don't need the urethane ball.
Well, not to put any pressure on you today, but Angela in the chat says she has you as a doubles partner. She's bowling next week.
Okay.
She's already signed up with you as a doubles partner, so no pressure there, Kris.
All right.
That is one of the fun parts of this tournament, though, is that any other tournament in the world, you might not ever get a chance other than maybe a Pro-Am, and Kris really isn't your partner in the Pro-Am because most of the Pro-Ams, it's just your score that counts, and the pros score, they're there having fun, and they might shoot 300 with somebody else shooting the fill ball on a 9-pin tap, that kind of thing. But this tournament, you can have Kris Prather as your doubles partner. You can still sign up before the 2 o'clock squad today, even if you haven't registered for the tournament yet at all. Sign up for a future weekend. Get your doubles entry in on League Pals as well. Sign up with Kris yourself, pay that entry. Boom, you now have Kris Prather as a doubles partner. It's so cool. Somebody's asking if they can have me as a doubles partner. No, unfortunately, I'm kind of retired from bowling, actually, because of the live streaming. I'm working every squad of the tournament, so sorry, you can't have me as a fantasy doubles partner or whatever you want to call it.
I'm sure you could find someone to run the stream. It wouldn't be as good, most likely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you could find somebody to run the stream for one block.
Okay.
We'll have to talk. And then how you follow us around with the camera, we're going to follow you around with the camera and see how you like it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, we'll definitely be talking to Kris after he's done today. So look on the PBA League Bowler Certification Facebook page later on next week as we'll talk to Kris after he bowls the 6 games today and get his thoughts on what he saw in the lanes and as things go through the 6 games and watching the fan. It was pretty cool last week with Sterner because Sterner had a young lady bowling with him, and she was just so enamored to just be on the pair with a pro, that kind of thing. So
I do think that having us bowl, whenever we're available, I think is really cool for the people bowling as well as convenient for us because, after this weekend, I'm busy pretty much every weekend all the way up until like August or September. So there wasn't going to be another opportunity for me to bowl. However, I do think that going back to, people signing up for doubles with us and everything like that, where Sterner bowled the first weekend, right? It's tough for people to, know when he's going to bowl and say, hey, I want Jason Sterner as a partner.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how those entries with the doubles and the teams and everything like that kind of shape up in relation. See if people still sign up ahead of time and pick their partners and things like that. So I do think there's pros and cons to both sides of it, right? It was really convenient because everybody that was bowling the tournament knew, hey, I can sign up when I get there to bowl with whatever pro I want, whereas now they have to sign up ahead of time. But it's also more convenient for all of the pro bowlers. They can come out here and bowl whenever they're available.
So question in the chat, somebody's asking, the question is, there are 5 difference between when they use urethane versus reactive, so I'm assuming that's targeting and stuff like that. But
Sure.
when do you know when to use urethane, and when do you know it has to go back in the bag and reactive has to come out? I mean, it's never a one case covers all scenario,
Right.
but there's got to be some basics you look for in ball motion for the difference between urethane and reactive.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I look at. The first thing is just specifically throwing the bowling balls, right? We're not even talking about lane patterns because people throw it on 45 feet now, right?
Right.
But for me, it's if that urethane ball is not reading the lane fast enough, even with surface on it, then I go to a reactive ball because the core and the flare potential just isn't there to get it to grip the lane. The other thing that I look at is kind of, it goes hand in hand, is if the ball is starting to read too early, which means it's either going offline and going high consistently and forcing my feet too far to the left. If I threw it with my second hand on the ball, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But because I have my thumb in it, as that urethane ball starts making me go left and open up my angles, it doesn't get high enough on the head pin, so it always flat 10s or at 2 pins. So as soon as I see that first or second flat 10, or I feel like that ball's starting to force me a little bit too far to the left to where I'm having to kind of force it to hook or force it to strike, and I feel a little bit more in a box, more or less, I get out of it. I'm probably one of the people that gets out of urethane the fastest, but it's because I throw it with my thumb. If I didn't throw it with my thumb, then it would be less of an issue. I'd be able to throw it for 4 or 5 games like Troop and Belmo and Simo and all those guys.
All those guys this weekend. I got to compete against those guys later on today because don't forget, everybody, CBS Sports Network today, the top 8 from the last 2-year rolling points list are in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Steel City Bowl and Brews for the PBA Tour Finals. 4 hours of competition today, 5 hours of competition tomorrow. So if you're not watching us here from Valero Mount Prospect, get yourself CBS Sports Network, or if you don't have it, just wait a little bit and it'll get on the PBA YouTube channels as well. So, but some great competition there as well. And
I don't know if you looked at the step ladder, but it's going to be a 2-hander versus a 1-hander.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, because the
no, I didn't look at
pods. The 2 pods are also, there's a 2 count on lane 10 right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So there is OB. So anyway, the 1 pod is all the 2-handers, so it's Belmo, Simo, Troop, and Packy. And then the other one is Bill, Marshall, Jacob, and EJ. Yeah.
I think Tom Clark had something to do with it's just how the points worked out because we all know they seed them by certain point positions and almost got the conversion.
Almost got the spare.
Yeah, let's take a peek over on that pair now. We're done with 11 and 12 for game 2, well into game 3 here. We've got Frank Uriema, who's in the men's handicap division. He's coming in with an average of 165. We've got Corey Jumper, who's in the Open Classic division. And then here you see up, going a little wide, is Sarah Orswell. And Orswell, bowling in the women's handicap division, she's coming in with a 158 average. And that is one thing that's so great about this tournament. You can get a PBA Tour type experience coming into this event, and you don't have to be PBA Tour caliber.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
2 players averaging in the 150s here on this pair goes to prove it. And they have a chance to make TV just like you do. Exactly. The same chance to get the Bayside Bowl. How about that for the cover?
Nice spare.
Never easy under the live stream lights.
This entire, how long has Nolan been working with the PBA? A couple of years now, right?
A good couple of years for Nolan Hughes, yeah.
I whenever he walks around with a camera or his phone, I hate seeing him. My strike percentage when he's around, and he'll attest to it, is got to be less than 10%. He said that it took him an entire day to get a video of me striking, and this was when Andrew and I were bowling really well at the doubles.
Oh, really?
So it wasn't like I wasn't striking. He just, every time he came around, it was some sort of split.
So I had that same effect this year at the World Series on Stu Williams.
Oh, yeah.
I did get a couple of gestures made my way by Mr. Williams.
It's so funny to, whenever Nolan comes around, I'm like, dude, go away. And it's not even Nolan's fault. It's just a happy coincidence. It is funny watching some guys who like legitimately get mad about it, where they're like, the camera's around, I'm not going to strike type of deal, and but it's totally just a happenstance type of deal. It's very, very at this point, Nolan and I just laugh at it.
Let's see what we got here for another question in the chat. Oh, what do you do if a bowler? You probably do a little coaching on the side as well.
Yeah.
Bowlers that aren't balanced with speed and rev rate, they're either speed dominant or rev dominant.
Yeah.
Let's say there's a bowler that's speed dominant. Is there a drill that type of player could use to increase the rev rate, or maybe it might be just a change in pitch or something, ball pitches, or?
The rev rate thing. The first thing that I would have them work on it would totally depend upon like how big the difference is, right? If somebody has a 125 rev rate but they throw it 20 miles an hour, right? I would try to find a way to get those closer together, first by dropping the ball speed and then by increasing the rev rate. I feel like it's a lot easier whenever it's those big drastic differences, but when it's small, because my goal is always to try to match the ball speed to the rev rate whenever I'm bowling in non-PBA competition.
Okay.
Right? But that's because in most scenarios, I'm on the higher level of the rev rate. So I don't need to throw it as slow as I do out on tour because we're not bowling on as much volume, and I'm typically transitioning the lanes a little bit faster out in the amateur world than I am on the PBA side.
Okay.
Right? So when it comes to like coaching those types of things, if someone is very speed dominant, I have them focus on their tempo, meaning how fast their feet are moving to the line, because that's going to help them control that ball speed more consistently. And then if they are really low on the rev rate, I will have them focus on just trying to keep their fingers, their middle finger and their ring finger, or whatever fingers are in the ball, underneath the equator of the ball. So if you take a slow-mo video of yourself from behind and you look and see, you cut the ball in half like you do the globe, right?
Okay.
That equator, you want to try to get your fingertips underneath that equator in like the southern hemisphere of the ball. And that will help the unload process, right? Because you're unloading more, and that should increase your rev rate. And that's the easiest way I have of explaining it. Once we get into like engaging the elbow and trying to create that more of like yo-yo effect, then it becomes a little bit more process oriented, and you have to try and feel more, and there's more things that you have to work on that really I can't explain over video, because I have to show you and then explain how to do it and then make sure that you're getting it set up right, so that way you can then feel what I'm talking about. And then if you're more rev dominant and you have lower ball speed, it's still focusing on tempo, but increasing that tempo from, let's say you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you slide, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say it's now 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You see how that tempo just kind of increased a little bit, and that small jump is going to increase your ball speed significantly, right? That could be a mile an hour just right there, just focusing on your tempo, because you're getting your feet moving in a proper way and you're accelerating to the line. Most people, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they try to accelerate at the last moment, but they're trying to get going so fast that they have to slow down so everything else catches up. And what we want is trying to accelerate the entire time at the line, or starting out slower, so that way you can accelerate and save all that energy that you're trying to build for the release point.
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions to ask you guys that are on tour, because I know how much it can get under your skin.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry to say it, but bowlers just don't look like athletes. You look at soccer, hockey, football, majority are fit, lean, muscular to some degree.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with that.
So,
no, I agree.
Yeah, so why? I mean, people look at recreational bowlers on their Thursday Night League, and we might see that. You really don't see that out on the PBA Tour anymore. You don't see the Steve Cook or the old Del Ballard where they would get through. You can't get through a major tournament nowadays with the physicality of the game without being physically fit, because you can't bowl when you're tired. Let's be honest. You can't bowl if you're tired and exhausted out there. You're not going to keep up with the rest of the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest thing that when it comes to bowling, right, this is just my own personal opinion, right? We have someone like Kyle Troop who's in the gym a lot, right? I don't know if people know how much Kyle's in the gym, but I'm pretty sure he goes 4, 5, 6 times a week. Marshall's in the gym a bunch. Chris Vi, obviously. Like, I'm just trying to think of the handful of people that are in the gym more often than what you would expect, right? Someone like me, I work out at home. I do a lot of body weight exercises. But if we are being totally honest, like, our game is so much more luck-based than I think a vast majority of people realize. And it's also, physically throwing the ball, right? We have to be able to physically throw the bowling ball. But it's also about using your brain and being able to visualize what's on the lane right now. Mm-hmm. Because if we're just looking, I'm not picking on Frank here, right? Like, his score is showing that he doesn't really have control of the lane, and he doesn't really understand what the lane is asking to do. He's not visualizing the pattern, right? So that's the side of bowling that House Shots has completely obliterated, right? People don't have to visualize what the oil pattern is asking for anymore, because they can just chuck it to the right and it's going to hook because there's friction over there. Whereas right now, they don't have that free hook, so they're trying to do something that they typically don't ever do, which is visualize what the oil pattern is wanting you to do. Based on what I'm seeing and the couple of guys that have thrown more than a strike or two, is straighter angles and a little bit of surface, right? That's kind of what I'm seeing here, right? That's probably going to walk right in the pocket, throw a strike. Really straight. He knows how he understands his limitations. He's not trying to overhook the lane. He's just trying to control the pocket, and he's bowling a really, really good score right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. And so I think you can be too physically fit or too muscular, because similar to like golf, right? We have rotation. We need flexibility. And if you look at a lot of, especially on the women's side, right? The women have very, very flexible hands, which allows them to keep their fingers in it longer. Yep. So like someone like a Daria, right? If you ask her to like bend her fingers back, they bend back a long way. They're super flexible, which is why she can create a lot of the rev rate that she does. And if you watch someone like an EJ, right? His hand is very, very, I guess, malleable, I guess is the word I'm looking for, right? He's super flexible. And his fingers are in the ball for such a long time, which is, again, why his rev rate is so high. Now, the two-handers don't really have to worry about that all that much because they throw it without their thumb. But if you throw it with your thumb, you want your fingers to be flexible. You want your wrist to be flexible, which is why a lot of the one-handed bowlers end up with, that kind of mid to high rev rate if they're working on it a bunch, because they still have to worry about clearing the thumb, right? If you are just a new bowler starting out, I suggest throwing it without your thumb, because the rate at which you will shoot higher scores, I guess is how I should say it, is going to be faster, right? Because you don't have to learn how to clear your thumb out of the ball. That's why it's such a big thing when you get a new ball, like, hey, if I throw it with my thumb, I got to make sure that my thumb comes out of it, because otherwise I'm not going to throw consistent shots. So, yeah, the physicality of it and being physically fit matters, but it's not the most important part of bowling. I think the most important part is knowing how to knock all 10 pins down, because that's the goal. And the process in which doing that is figuring out what the lane is asking. So I don't know that bowlers have to be as physically fit as soccer players or football players or baseball players or people that play other sports, because it's not as physically taxing. We're not running to the foul line unless you're Jacob Buttriff, right? You're not running to the foul line. You're not trying to throw the bowling ball 30 miles an hour. You're not trying to do all of these physically taxing things. You're trying to replicate a feel and a ball roll, and that takes the fine tuning and feel of the less bulky muscles, right? You have to be able to say, hey, I want to create 45 degrees of axis rotation, or I want to create 75. Norm Duke, being one of the best bowlers ever, wasn't a physically, dominating presence, and that's not because he's a short guy. It's just he knew what he needed to be physically to create the best version of himself on the lanes, and I think that that's totally fine. Do I think that bowlers in general should spend more time in the gym? Sure. Yeah, I think that would be great for our image, and I think that those types of questions would kind of go to the wayside, but I also don't think it's going to change the worldwide, or I get not even worldwide, but the American general population perspective of bowlers drink beer and eat pizza while they bowl. Right? I don't think that that's going to change. Yeah. But if you look at the youth of today, right, the guys that are going to make me retire, right, all of them are in the gym. All of them are going to college and they're working out and they're taking better care of themselves, and they're that physically fit type of body that these people are talking about. So I think that the perception is changing and the people are changing, but you can't expect somebody that's 40 years old or 35 years old that's probably never gone to the gym, or maybe they did but they were 20, right? You can't expect them to just be like, well, I'm changing my whole lifestyle. Right? It takes time.
And one of the prime examples of that, a great coach to this day, Del Warren, who was on the Pro Tour back in the 80s and 90s, and Del had to retire from the tour because he became too muscle-bound on one side. His doctor told him if he would have bowled 10 minutes a day left-handed, you mentioned the flexibility of the rotation that you need. He messed up his flexibility and rotation because he became too muscle-bound on his right upper half and his left lower half with bowling. So one of the things he works with his athletes at Weber is flexibility, training, rotation, that type of thing, and they have all kinds of different tools they use to work on that. So it's kind of ironic that you bring that up and how it's been that way in bowling for a long time, that now people are knowing what they need to watch for. It's not just, hey, I can get out there and keep throwing a bowling ball. It's no, you got to work on all the parts of your body as well.
And just 3 weeks ago, I think, I worked with the gentleman that was at the World Series in Detroit, Paul, with Fast Track Physio. Okay. And we were doing some just drills and trying to figure out what my limitations were and everything like that. I had 20 or 25% less rotational flexibility going to my left side than I did my right side.
Really?
Yeah, 20%.
Wow.
And the only way to fix that is by obviously stretching out all of those muscles, but I was also significantly weaker on my non-dominant side, right? Which makes sense a little bit, but because, when we bowl, or when I bowl personally, I slide on my left leg, and my right leg is pushing into the foul line, so I'm still using it. My legs weren't too bad, but when it came to just rotation in general, it was a 20% deficit all the way around.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about this little guy, Robert, coming in?
Right?
Robert bowling.
Tristan.
Oh, Tristan, I'm sorry, Robert's bowling on the other end. Tristan bowling in the boys' junior handicap. Comes in with a 172 average, and as you mentioned, these two-handers, it's the revolution of the game. And we have a question about a one-hander but no thumb, so kind of a Tom Doherty-like type of thing. And let me get that question back up here. How do they work on their speed consistency? They seem to not have that much problem with the accuracy, but speed consistency is the big cause for alarm. So how do you work
with no thumb?
No thumb. That's a good
no
question.
Second hand.
Yeah.
It really just goes right back to tempo, right? And not having watched you bowl, I'm going to assume that typically the miss is you try to throw it faster and it immediately just dumps into the lane and then double bounces. And that goes back to, funny enough, if that is your miss, I'm not saying it is, but if it is, typically that is because you're not strong enough to keep your hand underneath the ball, right?
Okay.
If you look at Tom Doherty, if you watch him when he balks, right, he literally like catches the ball with his hand on the other side of it and then throws it up in the air.
Yeah.
And to be that physically strong, because it's so easy to, like, if I were to do that and try to do that, my wrist would not, it would collapse and the ball would go down the lane. So if you're trying to throw it faster and also keep your hand underneath the ball without your thumb in it, you have to be able to use your legs to throw it fast, not your arm. Because when you're trying to whip your arm and create that ball speed, the wrist is going to collapse. You're not going to be able to keep your fingers underneath the ball, and it's just going to dump into the floor. Now, if you don't have that miss, it's still the same thing. Try to use your legs to generate the ball speed, because your legs are typically stronger than your arms. Even if you don't go to the gym, right? You've never gone to the gym in your life, your legs are what's holding you up all day, and it's what's moving you around. You run, jump, whatever. Your legs are just naturally going to be stronger. So focus on the foot tempo, speed with your feet, and focus on trying to make it an acceleration to the line instead of acceleration, slow down, acceleration. Okay. Right? You want it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? You want it accelerating as you're getting closer to the foul line, because you're trying to generate that speed and acceleration onto the lane. And you want it to be more natural, right? Whenever you're running, you're not picking up speed and then slowing down and then picking up speed. You're trying to keep it consistent.
Yeah. Pace. Even a hurdler is not slowing down before they get to a hurdle.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, here's somebody asking, is this tournament alcohol-free or are adult beverages allowed? Actually, if you were bowling a PBA Tour or PBA Regional event, you would not be allowed to drink while you bowl. However, here, rules a little looser for the PBA LBC National Championships. If somebody wants to enjoy an adult beverage at 11 a.m. while they're bowling, they're more than welcome to. Saw there were some drink specials at the bar on domestic bottles and even mimosas for those that want to.
It is breakfast
take
time.
care of it. It is breakfast time. So rules are a little looser here for the PBA LBC National Championships than they would be for a PBA Tour stop or for a PBA Regional stop. So I do my best bowling buzzed. That makes my bowling a game and not a sport. Well, yeah, everybody gets to have a little fun with it sometimes, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think that the rules on the alcohol consumption are perfect, because if you want to, if you're the type of person that wants to come out, bowl a tournament, have a beer or two, no problem. But if you're the type of bowler that wants to take it super serious and have that competitive feeling, you don't have to indulge.
JT in the chat says, Kris, I really appreciate your professionalism and transparency. You have one of the best deliveries on tour.
I appreciate it.
I have to agree with that. You do have one of the best forms on tour, and that's one of the things, when you post a shot, you could hold that for a couple of days if you wanted to. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I will admit, it was something that I worked on with Brian O'Keefe, the Team USA head coach. We noticed that every time I post a shot and it's like that solid finish at the line, my ball reads the lane a little bit faster, but I think it's because it comes off my thumb a little cleaner.
Okay.
So it gets into a roll a little quicker. So whenever they're a little tighter in the middle part of the lane, you'll see me posting more shots, just because that's just a personal belief that I have now. Hey, if I post this one, my ball's going to hook more.
So for those of you joining us a little late, he's Kris Prather. I'm $2 Phil Bryla. We're here at Bolero Mount Prospect for our fourth squad of the PBA LBC National Championships for the 2024 edition. The lane pattern is a 43-foot pattern, almost 30 milliliters oil in the pattern. It's about a 4.5-1 to ratio. So for a lot of these bowlers out here, it's something that's a little tougher than if they only bowl leagues, that type of thing. For somebody like Kris, it's a little tougher because it's not as tough as the PBA Tour, and he's got to play it a little bit different. So we'll have him talk about that a little bit more before he leaves the booth this morning, so that way you guys can hang out for a little bit while and check out what's going on. Everybody's saying thanks for answering the questions, Kris. And if you have questions, drop them in the live chat. We'll get to as many as we can here.
Yeah, and I will say, I didn't realize that there was going to be 30 mils of oil on the lane. That's probably close to 15, maybe even 20% more oil than what these people are typically bowling on like a house pattern.
Yeah.
Right? Most house patterns are somewhere in the realm, depending on the bowling center, of like 20 mils to like 25. So not only are they bowling on a tougher pattern, but they're also bowling on more oil. So they're, those super shiny bowling balls that you can throw on your league pattern aren't going to work as well with that shine on them, right? I'm a person that uses surface all the time, right? If I'm throwing a shiny bowling ball, the lanes are on fire. There's no oil in the lane. And so here, this is very similar volume-wise to a lot of the oil patterns that we've bowled on tour. So I think the people that, are those somewhat competitive bowlers, because even in like regionals, right? If you've bowled a regional before, most of the time those patterns are still around that 22 to 27 mil range. So this is even more volume than that. So people are seeing something different than what they would typically ever see, because most bowling centers don't want to invest that much money into oil on the lane because they don't have to protect the lane as much, because they know their league base and they know how much traffic they're going to get. And they know how much oil to put in the lane so that it's not tearing up their property. Protect
the track, and that's the biggest thing. Protect 8 to 12 on the right side, and they'll be just fine.
Exactly.
Here's a good question. Could you be effective on tour without having a loft game?
I think it's becoming more easy to make it without lofting.
Okay.
Only because our formats are getting shorter. There are times where like what we were just talking about, the track being so dominant, there's so much friction because there's been so much league play and open play in the bowling center that no matter what pattern is out, you have to start at 20. And in that case, I would say probably going to have to work on it a little bit. But I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10, it's probably fine. We don't bowl on double burn anymore. We really don't bowl on, formats long enough to where it requires us to really loft the gutter a significant amount. Because even when I'm looking at like 30 or 32 at the arrows, like I don't really have to loft it that far, right? If anything, I'm trying to get it an extra like foot out onto the lane, because I'm not trying to throw it to the arrows from there, right? I'm just trying to get it over the gutter. So it is feasible, but there's also a lot of times where the front panel hooks a lot, whether it's because it's an old panel or the lanes just hook that much in the front, where you do need to throw it at least 5 or 6 feet out on the lane, just kind of not necessarily like Mika, but in that general consensus of like my ball's hooking as soon as it touches the lane. I need to get it over, because I don't know if you knew this was a thing. I found this out the hard way when I was in college, but there are some bowling centers, they have so much open play that they'll actually go behind the lane machine and squeegee up the oil on the first 3 feet, because they don't want people to walk past the foul line and fall. Right? So I bowled a tournament, and they just did that because that's what they were trained to do. And I was like, we're tournament bowlers. So immediately I was like, okay, well, now I have to throw it at least 3 feet onto the lane. Right? And most of the time it's maybe a foot or two. And so there are, some situations where you just have to throw it over the front part of the lane.
Because there's really no rule about where the oil has to start with the USBC rules. I mean, if they want to have a lane with 0 oil across it, it's perfectly legal with the way the USBC is nowadays. So kind of Peterson-esque that happens. But yeah, I do know of some centers I'm from the Milwaukee area. I do know of a couple centers that for open play, they do not oil the first 3 feet of the lane, just in case somebody would cross the foul line or step over, and so they don't fall. But they usually set it back when they know there's tournaments coming in.
And which I think is totally fine. That's totally fine. But I also, like, if you're running a tournament and they're not oiling the first 3 feet of the lane, I do think that because of how 99% of the tournaments are, I do think there needs to be some sort of announcement like, hey, guys, just so you know, there's no oil in the first however many feet of the lane. Here you go. And then let them figure it out. So long story short, yes, you can make it out on tour without a loft game. But I do think at some point it'll bite you in the butt.
especially if you get to a U.S. Open type block or something of that nature. Hey, even on, I mean, you guys don't have it on the regular tour at all anymore, but you know, look at this past week for the USBC Senior Masters.
Yep.
Oil, fresh oil, burn squad, double burn squad.
Yep.
So even those guys on the senior tour are getting into their loft game a little bit.
Yep. And I wish that we'd still bolt on the double burn stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't really get any good until we get left at like 20 or 25.
Right.
So, you know, I need that double burn in the burn.
See, and that's one thing I've always enjoyed about the tour, and especially like the times I do actually back in the day when I was on Extra Frame, or the times now I watch on Bowl TV, which is you guys do things out there that us mere mortals can't do. I love watching baseball. I can never hit a home run, and watching those guys go yard and hit a 450-foot bomb is phenomenal. I can't hit a 300-yard drive like Tiger. I can't loft the left gutter on double burn and watch it go 45 feet down and just right back into the pocket. And I always thought that was great for, you know, a couple of times a year for tournaments and that kind of thing when it got to that point, because it shows what you guys can do that mere mortals can't do.
Yep.
I'd love to see that back, even for just one event where you guys have, I mean, obviously now on the regular tour, whenever possible, they have single squads. Mm-hmm. But for them, you know, even for the majors, if they, you know, obviously the U.S. Open is 3 squads, and the Masters is 3 squads.
Yep.
You know, there's, you know, take the Masters back to burn, you know, fresh burn, double burn.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I'd enjoy that thoroughly.
Me too.
Because it's just it's fun. It's fun to watch. It really is.
Yeah, but it does get to a point where it gets a little excessive because a lot of us can throw the ball so far that it does actually damage the panels sometimes, because it is, you know, 15 or 16 pound object,
right,
falling down from sometimes 6 or 7 feet, right? So it looks awesome, but I also know the reasoning that they're getting away from it is the proprietors are like, hey, you guys can be here for a week and then you leave.
Right.
I still have to deal with all the damages after, you know, somebody doesn't clear the gutter cap.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, some hack. I saw those guys do it, and okay. All right, so we got to go up both sides. That's right. But it's just, my appreciation of it is just, it's so cool to watch because mere mortals can't do it.
Yep, I'm the exact same way as you when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you know, I would love to be like a Ray Lewis and just no matter who's coming down the hill at me, I'm gonna knock them out. Yeah. But I'm 5'9" and 185 pounds or 190 pounds. Like, it ain't gonna happen. Yeah. or be Giannis and just dunk on everybody.
Right. I don't even think I could dunk with a trampoline nowadays. Let's be honest. So, Kris, you wear glasses. Have you ever tried to bowl with contacts?
I did. Yeah, I did it in college. Okay. And I probably would have stayed with contacts, but they got super expensive, so I just went back to glasses. And then obviously, you know, without the contacts, I'm not, you know, Superman or whatever as people call me. So,
hey, there's a couple more questions in the chat we'll get to. We're going to take a short little audio intermission here. I'm going to refresh a beverage, give Kris a chance to grab something. Yep. I suggest you do that as well. And we're going to come back with Game 4 competition. We'll get Kris for probably one more game here, answer some questions, and thanks everybody for joining us this morning from Bolero Mount Prospect. Over 7 so far. All right, here we go. We're back with Kris Prather. I'm $2 Phil Brylo. We're here at 9 a.m. squad, PBA LBC National Championships. Another squad today at 2 that Kris will be bowling on, and we'll have another squad tomorrow, 11 a.m. This is the only booth feed for the weekend, the only main feed. So if you do have questions for Kris, now we've got for another game and a half, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can answered.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So this is different. All right. So bowling has its traditional scoring system of 300.
Yes.
What do we think the mass population would think if we switched from the traditional scoring system to more of a golf, I guess, where it like you have the 10 pins, right? All that's normal.
Right.
But you count how many times it takes for you to knock them all down, right?
Like
so
the Petraglia scoring system from years ago. They did a PWB event with that. I remember that.
Yeah. So what if that became the norm because it's easier to track and the general public and that doesn't know bowling doesn't have to worry about, strike plus your next 2 balls or spare plus your next ball, blah, blah, all the confusing stuff.
Right.
Do we think, because I've been thinking about how different the bowling world would look if that became the norm because we have bonus pins right now.
Sure.
Right? And it's basically 10% of your of a max score, right?
Yeah.
30 bonus pins. So what if you win a match and instead of, let's say par is 30, right? Instead of 12 balls, 12, shots, you have 10, right? A perfect score becomes 10. And let's say you win your game and then you get 1 ball subtracted from your score in a bonus pin situation, match play situation.
Okay.
Right? Because then it's not about, a guy throwing an 8-bagger missing 2 spares. It becomes, hey, that 10 pin you missed 4 times, you still have to shoot it.
Right.
Right? Could you imagine you're doing this stream and someone's shooting a 10 pin for the 4th time and you're like, all right, here comes attempt number 5. Like, how many shots is it going to take? Could you, imagine on tour, right?
Yeah.
Someone is just, they haven't made a 10 pin in 8 shots, right? It's like Tiger missing a 3-footer 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't happen. But, I feel like in today's game, spares are becoming significantly less important, right? Because guys, they just strike so much.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's still exciting and that's still fun. But it would also be fun and kind of funny, right? If I'm up there shooting my 10 pin for the 3rd or 4th time because I just didn't knock it over the first time I try to shoot at it.
Yeah.
And, could you imagine the nerves of man, I have to make this 10 pin in the next 3 shots. Next 2 shots, now I missed it again. Oh, I have to make it on this shot or I missed the cut. Right? Like that type of thing. I just think that the traditional bowling scoring method is not necessarily outdated, but it's just confusing for the general public, right? If you ask somebody to try to give you change, at a restaurant in cash,
right,
they have to use their calculator to figure out that, hey, the bill's $12.87. They gave me $15. I got to pay them $2.13. Yeah. Right. So it's just simplifying bowling in general, because I think a lot of the reason why we don't get the views that other sports do is because it becomes too confusing.
Yeah, and the world scoring system, that was okay. I like the Petraglia system, or the system that you be bringing up. The only concern I would have on it is I think you would have to have it as a certain average level before you could bowl that format, because you couldn't do a league in that format. If you did a tournament where you knew you had 30 frames or whatever.
No, I think you do a max score like
okay.
a max
I didn't
attempts.
think about that.
Yeah, max
Right.
attempts, because there's a lot of times in golf where, because I've done it.
Double par you pick up and you write down double par and
I
you
do
score.
10. I do 10. If
okay.
you have 10 shots on a hole,
then
you're done.
Right.
You just pick up your ball.
Right.
Or if you can't find your ball,
okay,
great.
So I like that there would be a max.
Yeah, I think in the league
5
scenario,
like 4 or 5 per frame or whatever.
Yep. I think in a league scenario, you make it 4 attempts or 5 attempts.
Okay.
Right, and then on the professional level, it's however many.
It's unlimited. Yeah.
And the obvious negative to that is there could be certain tournaments that go longer. Right, it's tougher to have a multiple squad day, meaning you bowl at 9 a.m. and then you bowl again at 5. It's tougher to do that because the squads could go longer because somebody just can't. Let's say I go out there and my first frame is a 6, and then my next frame is a 5, and then my next frame is a 7. Right. I'm taking forever to knock all those pins down.
Right.
But it also brings that spare game back into relevance, as well as striking. Because if you're striking, great.
Yeah.
1, 1, 1, 2, whatever. And then it's more about not necessarily like, oh man, I have to throw a 8-bagger to make up for this score. It then becomes, hey, I need to make my spares to stay relevant, right?
Yep.
And
there's, it's kind of funny because looking at the modern mechanics and the debate that we're getting with string pins, these machines like we have here at Bolero Mount Prospect with Brunswick A2s or AMF 82s, you'd have to have somebody back resetting pins after 2 balls. You don't necessarily have to if you have GSX pin setters where you can program the pinfall, you can just come right, set the pins that are left back up after the second ball. Or same with string pins, same thing. You could have that string pin come down every time until it's made.
Yep.
So it's something where you could take the modern technique. You'd have to be a modern technology center. But it's something where you can incorporate the format that you're thinking about and just go, here it is. It's great with that technology. It can't be that hard to reprogramming a scoreboard for.
It's got to be a line of code or something,
right?
In the program,
because they do different games on these on the GSX pin setters. I know I've been to Parker Bones Rev Rates in New Jersey, and they can do all kinds of different stuff with pinfalls. And watching EJ Tackett at his center in Easy Bowl in Bluffton, Indiana, they do all kinds of stuff with the string pins as well. So it's pretty interesting how you could tie that in and. Bang, change, like you said, change the line of code. Boom, here you go. It's a scoring thing everybody can do. And, it'd be great to see a PBA event like that where, hey, what did it take to win this week? 16 in the championship match. When they look at you, it's kind of funny. Well, it was if you keep it with the Petraglia scoring system or whatever, however they went. I'm like, hey, how about that? 6, 7, 10 pickup.
Nice shot.
By Natalie
Dutton
bowling in the women's Classic division. She's sitting at 6-0 right now after 3, so only had 1 entry in that division last weekend. So there's $5,000 guaranteed on top, however, and the top 2 finishers in that women's Classic division.
She's bowling pretty well, 7 over right now.
Speaking of Portland, September, it was looking a little hit or miss there for a while for the Lumberjacks. They were getting some ups and downs, and now you guys end up as a 2 seed. You could have been a 5 seed.
It was crazy coming down to the stretch there where, it was for us. If we won, the tiebreaker didn't matter, right? We had we had the record against the people that we would have been tied with had we won. But then had we lost, we would have lost the tiebreaker to the people that we would have then been tied with. So it was a pretty weird scenario there for a little bit. But I love what the PBA is doing with the PBA League and extending the format and giving us a kind of a league season, if you will, and ending it with the playoffs in September. Now, do I wish that the playoffs were kind of earlier in the year when everybody's still sharp and we don't have to get re-sharp for the league? Right. Absolutely. But I do think it gives us some exciting content at the end of the year that kind of leads us into the next season. Yeah.
And they do kind of make the pattern a little softer for you once you get to Portland. Roth pattern isn't exactly the world's toughest. That pair of lanes that you guys have 2 and 3 on the news side at Bayside Bowl, you got to be on your toes no matter what because they don't play as different as they used to. Still a bit different since they level the lanes. There's some good opinions coming back about the question you posed, Kris, about the new scoring system. One person says the issue is, sometimes you could have a bunch of bowlers standing around because it's taking somebody a long time to make a spare. But I think that's where your cap system would be, maximum number of balls before you pick up, as they say.
Yep.
So, what else? Somebody just said, do total number of frames, 20, you just do a total number of frames or 20, whatever they, have some scoring system for just 20 balls. If you, you could do that as well, but then that doesn't bring the spare game into play. If you just do 20 shots, add up, 1,
add
10, 9, 8,
add your total pins or whatever.
Right.
That would definitely be the easier way of doing it, but you're missing the kind of, in this golf analogy, the stroke per shot or per frame aspect of it, right?
So, somebody asking about the shark pattern, since you are shark. Bowling on the shark pattern coming up, they're just kind of asking for some strategies you might use going to a bowling center knowing that's the pattern you're attacking.
Yeah, I guess it depends on which version of the shark you're bowling on, which, again, totally honest here, this year I made the Shark TV show. That was the first time that I'd ever made the cut on Shark. So maybe the name isn't as accurate as what it should be, I guess. But the things that I've always struggled with on the Shark pattern is the fact that the old one used to have those two strips of right around the track area that on both sides where there wasn't really that much oil, so you were confined to that middle part of the lane. And you have to play really straight angles. Yeah. Now, I do know on the newer version of the Shark, those little strips where there's less oil aren't there. But you're still going to use a decent amount of surface on a relatively strong ball. Shallower launch angle, so you're keeping the ball really close to the head pin no matter where you're playing on the lane. And the other thing that I would say is actually use some surface on some of your quote-unquote pearlized bowling balls, because a lot of the time those pearlized bowling balls come into play, but you don't get to throw them because they don't have enough surface on them. So they're not reading the lane early enough to kind of chew through all of that oil. That's one of the things that we do a lot on tour is we take weaker bowling balls, hit them with a lot of surface, and get those bowling balls to still use that, to create that entry angle into the pins, because they're still relatively quick down lane, even with the surface, but they don't read the front part of the lane immediately. And I think that's what the kind of amateur or semi-pro level players miss out on, is they just think a ball comes out of the factory with polish on it, I have to throw it with polish on it. When in reality, you can do whatever you want. There's a lot of experimentation that I've done on bowling balls and different surfaces and just trying to figure out what I like. That's why I know on a virtual energy blackout, I absolutely love that bowling ball when I hit it with 500 straight out of the box and then hit it with 2,000 over the top of it, because it doesn't lane shine, and the 2,000 cuts that 500 kind of in half, but the 500 takes all of the polish off of it, so it doesn't get shiny or slimy or anything like that. It keeps that grip.
Let's see. Should be one. There was another good question in here. Oh, fouling so much. They're having problems with fouling, but then if they go to change the sole of their shoe, insta-stick. Okay. So is that something where maybe they should try walking around with the second sole to try to break it in more because it's so new? That's why they're sticking, or? Yeah,
that could be a combo of that, because I know that if you're typically using a number 8 sole from Dexter, those are super slick. But then if you go to the next one down is a number 6, or technically there's a number 7, but number 6 is the most widely known one. Some people don't realize that there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 now, something like that. They have something called black ice, which is so ridiculously slick. But number 6s, fresh out of the pack, and even number 7s, because they're half number 8, half number 6, but number 6s fresh out of the package have some sort of film on them. I use a number 6 whenever they are the slickest approaches that they have, because they are number 6s out of the pack for me are so tacky that they slide less than a number 2 Number 3, number 4, they are the least amount of slide for me. So if you're going from like a number 8 to a number 6, I would actually go down to a number 4 or a 5 because they don't have they'll actually end up sliding more fresh out of the pack than a number 6, and they'll break in way faster than a number 6, at least in my opinion. It just depends on what you're using. The other thing I would suggest that I do that I don't know of anybody else that does is Dexter makes these shims. They're just Velcro little rubber pieces that have Velcro on both sides, but they make your heel taller. So most of the time when I foul is because I'm not putting enough pressure on my heel. So the rubber of the heel is actually not coming into contact with the approach.
Okay.
So shoving that shim in the heel of your sole will end up allowing you to put more pressure on your heel, putting more pressure on that rubber and causing you to slide less. It's kind of like an old school way of making yourself slide less that really nobody does anymore. I know for a fact I'm the only guy on tour that does it because Ronnie had 6 of them on the truck, and I was like, "Hey, dude, do you have any shims?" And he goes, "Yeah, no one's going to use these. Take them all." So I have plenty.
All right, there's another good question. Oh, combating double bouncing, like when the blade. Now, sometimes, honestly, it might not be the person delivering the ball because sometimes the way they put lanes over old lanes, with the synthetics, sometimes there's just give in the front part of the lane and the ball hit. The lane's made to give a little bit and it'll bounce the ball back up again. But if someone's having consistent problems, they're going from house to house to house and having issues with the double bounce, what can they consider?
Yeah, the 2 things that I'm thinking of is the first one is the immediate dump into the lane, right? It actually doesn't get on the lane. It hits before the foul line and it hits the approach, and then it jumps on the lane. That's the first thing I'm thinking of. And then the second one is the overloft, right? Okay. Where you're throwing it out onto the lane and then it's landing with such force that it bounces back up in the lane, kind of what you're talking about. Going to the first one where it's into the lane before the approach, I just want you to focus on not necessarily throwing it slower, but going at like 40 or 50% speed while you're practicing and just feeling what it's like to get the ball out onto the lane, keep your hand underneath it, and feel like you're trying to throw the ball out onto the lane instead of allowing your hand to collapse and just kind of throw it in the lane. It could also be a swing steepness thing where you're not using enough knee bend and you're bending at the waist so much that your swing gets steep and the ball is not traveling on an arc anymore. It's more of a straight line down into the approach. So the thing I would focus on there is more knee bend and less waist bend. That'll help get that swing back on an arc and going parallel to the approach instead of almost perpendicular. Now going to the out onto the lane, I want you to try to focus on, again, this goes to knee bend because a lot of the people that you see that throw it out on the lane, they're lifting up out of the shot and they're kind of standing up and losing that knee bend. I want you to focus on, almost sitting down as you're coming in the line, feeling like you're kind of sitting down into a chair, keeping that knee bend nice and low, and trying to feel like you're rolling it on the lane. And again, this is great at 40 or 50% speed, where you're just trying to get that ball, down on the lane, keep your hand underneath it, and just roll it. You're not trying to throw it. A lot of the times, like I said, you see people just trying to throw it and kind of overpower the lane and just muscle the ball down there, and you don't really have to do that. So it just depends on what kind of double bounce you're working with.
All right. Oh, here we go. The question that everybody's got one side or the other on string pins. Have you bowled on them yet?
I practice on them every time I practice. The bowling center that I practice at, when I'm getting ready for tour is string pins.
Okay.
The way that I would describe it, I think they're fine.
So it's a certified. It's not. Some people call them carnival or short. Short strings.
Mine are the ones that I practice on are certified. I have a sanctioned 300 and 800 on them. And I will admit that there were only 2 strikes in the entire 3 games that you could consider the string knocked the pin over.
Okay.
In the 300 game, none.
Okay.
All right. So, do I think that string pins are kind of the future of bowling? In a way, yes. But it's only because when you come to a center that has A2s or an older machine, the number of people that are qualified or have the knowledge to take one apart and put it back together and fix all the things that have to be fixed with them are becoming so significantly smaller than having somebody just tighten up a string. And they don't even have to tighten up a string, they hit a button. They hit a button and they tighten the strings, and all of a sudden the pins are on spot again, right? With these, you have to change the bucket, you have to change the scissors, you have to figure out which way to move everything, right? You have to have experience and knowledge to do that, whereas you can train somebody to type in a code and tighten the strings.
Right.
So if the younger generation that are eventually going to be working on these machines want to do that and learn how to work on the machines, like the only person that I know of that would be in that age range that has the desire to do it is Anthony Simonson.
Yeah.
Right? He can work on every type of machine and help somebody build it, put it back together, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the population is becoming a lot less mechanically inclined, and they're becoming a lot more, electronically inclined.
Right.
So the way that just the worldwide culture is becoming is more around electronics and technology, which I think is totally fine.
Yeah.
But specifically bowling-wise on string pins, I think it's more of like, imagine the sidewalls don't exist, right?
Yeah.
Because with these machines, because of deadwood and things like that, the sidewalls are actually angled to where the pins will go to the back. That's why we have messengers, right? Whereas on string pins, the sidewalls are now straight.
Dead straight.
So the head pin just goes left and right.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't get messengers. I throw them all the time. They don't hit anything because the pin is in front of the 10. I don't trip as many 4-pins. I still can, but they're way less common. So that's kind of how I figure it is, like that kind of old adage of like, you hit 6, you get 6, right? That's very much string pins.
Right.
And if they are the certified machines, you don't have near as many occasions where the string is knocking the pins over. On the washouts and the splits where the pin gets flown around it, you'll see it sometimes.
Yeah.
But the strings are getting long enough and they're handling the tangling aspect of them well enough to where it's no longer as prevalent, right? If we go back to the Birmingham event for the, what was that?
World Games.
Yeah. Those strings were way too short, and you saw the kind of repercussions of that. But in my experience, there's a lot more of the traditional perfect strike. And I do think that that's actually hindered my ability to get the messengers and the trip 4s on tour. I didn't have near as many off hits, as you call them, this year on tour. I had a lot more of the, quote unquote perfect strike. But it's because I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing the messengers on a consistent basis. I'm not seeing the trip 4s.
When you're practicing
When
at
I'm
home.
practicing, I'm seeing the, if I throw a strike, it's 10 back. And that's what you saw from me on tour. There was very few trip 4s, very few messengers. I still got them from time to time because if I was bowling well, I'd get those off hits.
Yeah.
But when I wasn't bowling as well as other people, it was, strike, 4-pin because I missed a move, or strike, 10-pin because I made a move that I didn't need to yet. Yeah. So, it's, to me, they're fine.
Yeah.
To me, if they're the sanctioned pin setters, it's more 10 back strikes, not as many, messengers. Will I say it makes bowling less exciting? A little bit, because you're not getting the tomahawks off the wall.
Right.
That people like, you don't get the the tomahawk messenger slap out, get you some of that. You get the that's 10 back, I'm locked in type of look.
So, and I know there's a couple of regionals coming up in October. One of those being at EJ Tackett's Easy Bowl in Bluffton, and the following week at Foxview Lanes in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Are you considering bowling either one of those regionals? I know you're not. You hit regionals here and there.
Yeah, honestly, with how much I practice on string pins, I probably should go and bowl EJ's event. But like I said, from now until August, I'm busy pretty much the entire time. I'm going to Teen Masters in late June, so I will be there mainly because my jersey company Zello Gear sponsors the event, so we produce all the jerseys for all the competitors. So we're going to be there supporting that event, and then Storm will have me at Junior Gold, so I'll be at Junior Gold with the Storm team, and after that, I go to the Lucy, and then I host my own event in Pensacola, Florida. I host a Swiss Trios event at DeLuna Lanes. And then after that, we go to Sweden.
Yeah.
Shortly after that.
And then Portland.
And then Portland
after that.
So starting to get busy again. Had about a month off, and now it's time to get back into bowling form.
All right, let's see what else we got in the chat here. Oh, there's another good one a little farther back. Let me get it. We got questions. You got about 5 more minutes to dump them in there for Kris before he's got to head out and talk to some of the players on the squad. And obviously, get ready for his squad this afternoon. You must approach every event the same, whether it's getting on TV for a PBA Tour Championship or an event like the PBA LBC here. What's the routine for the 90 minutes before you throw that first practice shot?
The big thing for me now that I'm getting a little bit older is stretching. That's a huge thing for me because we spend, especially like in the truck when I'm driving places, I spend so much time just sitting. I have to do some squats and get my legs working again because using my legs in my delivery is such a huge, crucial part of me producing a good shot that if I don't kind of activate those muscles before the block, I'm pretty much done for.
Okay.
I can manage in some scenarios, but more times than not, I got to get there at least an hour and a half early. So it's really convenient that I got in the booth with you today. For me anyway, just prepping because I'm already here. I can spend all the time, I can go outside. It's a little cloudy, but it's nice outside. I can stretch outside and kind of walk around and just get my legs moving. But the other part of it is like conveniently there's this squad. So if I hadn't bowled here before, I would kind of watch how the pins are falling, not necessarily like this gentleman on lane 3 just left a 4-pin, right? His ball motion looked pretty good, but that's kind of telling me that maybe the trip 4 isn't there. So maybe I need to use less of the head pin. Maybe the messenger's there. So it's all looking for those kind of off hits. And trying to best prepare myself for whenever I get into those kind of transitional moves of like, hey, I've gone high or high flush a couple times in a row. Maybe I need to make a move. If I know that the messenger is in play, I'm more apt to make that move.
Okay.
Whereas if I know the trip 4 is in play, I won't make that move because I know if I hit high on the head pin, I'm likely to still strike.
Got it.
So I very much look at how people are playing them, but mostly how the pins are falling because that's the important part, right? The goal is to knock the pins down.
And it's one thing that newer bowlers that are tuning in really should focus on as well is that you need to watch that ball not just 60 feet to the head pin. You need to watch it 65 feet as it gets all the way through the end of the pin deck into the pit. So, because there's so many times where you're making adjustments off of 4 pins or 9 pins or weak 10s or ring 10s that to keep competitive, because if you make that wrong move and you give it away for another frame on that particular lane because you're going from one lane to another, that could interrupt. Instead of having a 3-bagger, you go strike, spare, strike. 21 pins less at a minimum on your scorecard, and somebody else is passing you that game.
Yeah, exactly. And especially on tour, every hit is so crucial. I missed a handful of cuts this year. I missed the cut here by 2, right? And I missed the cut at the TOC. Now, granted, my first block at the TOC was not great, but I missed the cut at the TOC by 40 or 50, but I missed cash by 1 or 2 pins or something like that. Or, every spare, every hit is very crucial out on tour. So one of the things that I've been doing differently is when I am lined up and I have control of the pocket, if I leave like a 9-pin like we're talking about, but my ball motion looks really good, is I don't necessarily move unless I've already made a hand adjustment.
Okay.
Right? Let's say I'm using 45 degrees of axis rotation and I 9-pin. I'm like, okay, well, I don't necessarily need to move. It just means that my ball drove through the pins too much. So I use just slightly less axis rotation, and that's where that feel comes into play, right? I use slightly less axis rotation to get the ball to go through the back of the pin deck instead of left through the back of the pin deck, right? We want the ball finishing kind of behind the 9-pin. And since I missed the 9-pin, I know I didn't have enough deflection through the pins. So I use less rotation so the ball doesn't drive as much.
Yep.
And then, I would say 9 times out of 10, I follow that 9-pin up with a strike.
Okay.
Right? So it's those small moves that maybe some of the pros aren't even thinking about. They just do it naturally.
Yeah.
But there's also some of those pros that they have a 9-pin and then they just move.
Yeah.
Right? That's totally fine. But for me, because I am such a feel bowler, and I want to feel like I'm in control of what's going on, at least in my delivery, I want to be able to make those smaller moves and feel like I'm in control of the pocket, because I feel like that's my most crucial part of bowling is having control of the 1-3 and being able to say, you know what, if I make this small move, I'm not losing sight of what's important, which is the 1-3 pocket.
Nice. Terrifier question. He's got some questions about so many games without stirring your body. After the stream's done, Terrifier, go back to game 3. Kris does a great about 5-6 minutes on what he does, not just about what he does, but the physical abilities on tour, what they need to do to keep up nowadays, that type of thing. Go back and listen to that thing, because I want to make sure we get this question in before Kris leaves. You're getting ready. You mentioned the Lucky Larson. You'll be going over for that. How long does it take you to get ready for that? I mean, you got to worry about probably immunizations, visas, all the other stuff. I mean, how far in advance do you have to start planning for an overseas bowling trip like that?
I've been thinking about it for about 2 months already, and we're still 2 months away. So I would say like the prep of like looking at flights and trying to figure out the most cost-effective way to get there. And in a lot of ways, like if I haven't been there before, I'm trying to find somebody that's been there.
Okay.
Luckily, I've already been there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to set up flight landing times with Alec Keplinger, because he's going for the first time.
Okay.
And when you get to, because you actually fly into Copenhagen, Denmark, and you take a train to Helsingborg.
So you go under the Baltic Sea and then go...
You go around it.
Oh, you go around it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go around it on the train. But
Okay.
you sit on your, well, technically, in a lot of situations, you stand, because the trains aren't built to handle people flying with 3 or 4 bags. So, like, last year when we went, we were in, like, the worst spot, but also the best spot, because all of the seats were taken and all the luggage spots were taken.
Oh, geez.
So we were just standing there with our bags, our luggage and our bowling bags, in the doorway of where people are coming in and out.
Jeez.
So it was really inconvenient, and people were just looking at us like, "Where are you going?" And a lot of the locals speak English, so it's not like, and all the signs are in English as well. Like, but if you don't know where you're going, it can be kind of a stressful situation. Like the first time I ever went to Japan, had no one land with me. I didn't know anybody that was going. So back then it was Kirk von Kruger who was in charge, and he was like, hey, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go get on a taxi, and you're going to say, I want to go here. And I get there, and no one's at the hotel because my flight was delayed. So I'm just standing there trying to like talk to people, and luckily once I got to the hotel, they spoke English, and it was a very stressful situation. So, but when it comes to like bowling balls and things like that, typically I'll worry about that when time comes closer, because we figure out the pattern and everything like that. But travel, we look at months in advance.
Yeah. So, and let's give you one more question here before you head out. Do you use middle finger or ring finger pressure adjustments on your shots to control how your ball reacts?
It depends. If I want to roll it more, meaning less axis rotation, I use my ring finger. If I want to rotate it more, I use my middle finger. And then if I just want to increase the rev rate in general but not change anything, I do both.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Kris, thanks for your time. I know the fans really appreciate it. Everybody stuck around for quite a while today. And, hey, come back, 2 o'clock. We won't have a main booth feed, but you're going to be able to follow Kris through all 6 of his games, pair to pair to pair. We'll have all the pair feeds going, so you can look for those on the PBA YouTube page. We'll make a post. We'll try to make a post to social media or here on the feed. Let you know where Kris is starting, so you can start there and follow him all the way through.
Yeah,
Kris,
absolutely.
yeah, good luck this afternoon. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the questions, and hopefully see y'all soon.
All right, Game 6 coming up next. All right, yeah, we're well into game 6 of 6 here. The graphics department a little slow this morning. Apologize for that. As we were trying to get the information on where Kris Prather is starting, I know a lot of you are going to come back at 2 o'clock. We're not going to have a booth feed at 2 p.m. But we will have all of our pairs streaming, so you're going to be able to follow Kris Prather pair-to-pair all the way through the event. And if I can't get the starting pair for Mr. Prather before we end this stream for our 9 a.m. squad, 10 a.m. Eastern to start, of course. We're in the Central Time Zone here at Valero Mount Prospect. I'll try to get it posted to the PBA LBC Facebook page. So if you haven't already friended the PBA League Bowler Certification Facebook page, please do so, as you get a lot of tournament updates, tournament information, some great posts. We had a great interview with Jason Sterner last week after he was done with his round of competition here in Mount Prospect. And we'll do the same thing with Kris Prather once he's done on the 2 o'clock squad, and that'll be posted, of course, right to the PBA LBC Facebook page. So if you haven't liked it already, please do so. And if I can't get you the information on Kris Prather for the 2 o'clock squad, because I know quite a few of you are tuned in now and would like to watch Kris at 3 Eastern, 2 Central. We'll get you that info so that way you can know where Kris is going to be game by game, because obviously you'll have to change your feed on Facebook. And once again, all the pairs will be listed in the description below the video you're watching, so that way it'll be easy for you to go pair to pair to pair and follow Kris all the way through. So thanks for the comments. Thanks for all the questions today in the chat. Kris really appreciate it as well. He's like, yeah, there's some pretty knowledgeable fans for the PBA, aren't there? Yes, there are. And we're glad that some of you just taking part of your Saturday and joining us here for these LBC National Championships. And don't forget today as well, tune in CBS Sports Network, 3 p.m. Eastern. So you can double screen. You're going to have the live day 1, show 1 at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. That's when we're starting here again in Mount Prospect. Show 2 will start at 5 p.m. And on that, first show will be the one-handers, as it just happened to be. Tackett O'Neill, Kent Buttroff, 3 p.m. Eastern. Then at 5 p.m. Eastern, Simo Belmo, Troop Hanrahan. So there'll be 2 games on dual patterns, 46-foot Petraglia on the left lane, 38-foot Holman on the right. And then after those opening 2 games, the 3rd and 4th place totals will automatically be the 3-4 seeds for Sunday's group stepladder shows. The top 2 qualifiers bowl 1 additional game, just that game. Pinfall doesn't carry over to determine who gets the top seed for those Sunday group stepladders. And there's going to be a big advantage to being the top seed in those step ladders, not just because of your positioning towards the title, but the first 2 matches of each group step ladder is a single game. So 4 versus 3, winner versus 2, those are single game matches. Whoever wins out of that matchup advances to the number 1 seed, and it'll be a race to 2. 9th and 10th frame tiebreaker. And then the championship match will also be a race to 2 between the 2 group step ladder winners. So definitely a different format for those PBA Tour finals. But it keeps things lively, no doubt about it. Love that they're using dual patterns again. Has to show the versatility of the player. And with that rolling 2-year points list, you know you're getting some players that are just on fire, like EJ Tackett. I mean, EJ had such a great 2023 that he would have been the 3 seed without bowling an event in 2024. Just phenomenal. So your one seed's Tackett, 2 seed Simonson, 3 seed Belmo, 4 seed O'Neill, 5 seed Kent, 6 seed Troop, 7 seed Hanrahan, and 8 seed Buttruff. So you can see by that staggered, and that staggering was planned well in advance for the staggered seeding to seed each group final. Wasn't meant to be 1 hand and 2 hand. It just happened to work out that way. But I have it set on my DVR at home. Looking forward to some great PBA Tours final action coming up. From Pennsylvania, and what great hosts they have for this event with Lee Sant, Kris Sant, Steel City Bowl and Brews, and of course their other entity that's a great supporter of the PBA, Bowler X. If you want answers to the Brandon Novak questions, it's all over social media. Just do a search, do a Google search. I'm not going to answer that question, but we will not be seeing Mr. Novak for a few years. We'll just leave it at that. Once again, oil pattern today, 43-foot LBC National Championships pattern. You can go to pba.com/LBC tournament. Has all the tournament information, including not just what the pattern looks like, but all the numbers you'd need. So if you wanted to practice on this pattern in your home bowling center and they were willing to program those numbers into their oiling machine, you could practice on this pattern before you get to Mount Prospect. So thanks everybody for joining us on this squad. Like I said, I'll get on social media, the PBA LBC Facebook page. We'll get it out there where Kris Prather will be starting on his round, along with where he'll be moving to each game. So you can view on those streams at your convenience. Thanks everyone for joining us. Once again, the next squad starts 2 p.m. Eastern time. You will have all of your pair feeds, no booth feed for the rest of the weekend, but join us very soon. And if you do get questions about the PBA LBC National Championships, pba.com/LBC tournament will answer those. Otherwise, I know they'll be manning the message board on the PBA League Bowler Certification Facebook page. I'm $2 Phil Bradlow. Hey, parents, take the kids bowling because they will have fun for life, and we'll see you back here at 2 p.m. Eastern. Pardon me, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. here in Mount Prospect.
I know it's Here's TJ Williams.